was on.
Switch that on.
Thanks to you all for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee on Wednesday, the 10th of June. I'm going to be confused all week now because it's usually Tuesday. And it throws me. I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the committee. Please note that the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. If you're in attendance as a member of the public who's registered to speak, you'll have a time limit of up to 3 minutes, and the legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish, or if you're in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking, otherwise your microphone will be muted. To assist in following the evening's proceedings, a pack's been prepared and available online containing each item's report, plans, presentation slides and any addendum. After officers have presented the report and speakers have made representations, I'll invite members to make comments. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand when invited to, and remember to use your microphone and reference the paragraph number which will allow everyone to follow. Please keep in mind that some people require closed captions and maybe lip reading to follow the proceedings. So please speak slowly, clearly, and keep your hands away from your mouth. Please, can everyone ensure their phones are turned to silent or switched off? We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm sounds, please exit the same way that you came in. First item is apologies, Matthew.
We have apologies from Councillors Green, Hill and Snow, with Councillors Danny G and Councillor Adrian Lowe attending as substitutes.
Thanks, Matthew. And the next item is any declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in the agenda. If you have such an interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you should leave the room before the business starts to be discussed, but you do, however, have the same right to speak as a member of the public and may remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right and then leave immediately. In either case, you must not seek to improperly influence the decision on the matter. So have we any declarations of interest? No? Moving on to item 2, minutes of the meeting, Tuesday the 26th of May, pages 3 to 4. Will somebody move those, please? Thank you, and I take that seconded. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. So those minutes are approved. Planning items to be determined, applications to be determined tonight. For the benefit of the public here tonight, speaking arrangements for planning are as follows. The officers will summarise the report. Registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order: objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor and applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers are against the application, as chair, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings. So moving on to item 3A, land to the west side of Preston Road, Coppull, pages 5 to 58, with an update on your addendum. Amy is going to present this item, that planning permission is granted subject to conditions and a 106 agreement. I have a number of registered speakers: the objector, John Bennett, the ward councillor, Joe McCartney and Julia Berry, and the agent, Leon Armstrong. Over to you, Amy.
Thank you, Chair. So the application seeks planning permission for 39 affordable units comprising of 31 dwellings and a block of masonettes with 8 units. Access to the site will be provided to the north via Chisnell Lane. The site is situated within the green belt, where development is inappropriate unless it accords with specific exceptions set out in the framework. Of relevance to this application is paragraph 155, which states that the development of homes in the green belt may not be inappropriate subject to specific criteria, which includes the use of grey belt land. The officer report provides a detailed assessment of paragraph 155 and concludes the following. 1, that the land satisfactorily falls within the definition of grey belt and would not fundamentally undermine the purposes, taken together, of the remaining green belt across the area of the plan. 2, there is a demonstrable unmet need for housing, as the council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. 3, the site is considered to be within a sustainable location and the bus is a genuine alternative mode of transport to the car. There are bus stops outside the site offering a regular service from Chorley to Wigan via Coppull and Standish 7 days a week. Manual for Streets and the Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation document called Providing for Journeys on Foot both provide guidance on walkable neighbourhoods and set out distances to certain facilities which are considered to be within walking distance. The distances are not upper limits and the guidance recognises that walking offers the greatest potential to replace short car trips, particularly those under 2 kilometres. There are also a number of factors which affect walking distances, such as the individual's fitness and motivation, the purpose of the journey, the quality of services and the walking environment. The facilities in Coppull can be accessed by foot on safe pedestrian footways which benefit from street lighting, are well surfaced and are consistent along routes. In addition, the key services are also on the bus route and close to bus stops, and combined walking and public transport journeys are more than feasible from this site. Coppull Medical Practice is located at Acreswood Close, which is a 25-minute walk and 1.7 kilometres. The route would be via Preston Road, Spenmore Lane and Springfield Road. The bus stops are close to the junction with Springfield Road and Spenmore Lane, and a combined walking and bus journey would take 9 minutes. Google Maps also suggests that a cycle journey would be approximately 8 minutes. Coppull Library would be a 20-minute walk or a 5-minute bus journey or a 7-minute cycle journey. Coppull Library is also part of the Coppull Local Centre, which is approximately 1.4 kilometres in distance from the site. The proposed development would facilitate a new signal-controlled pedestrian crossing to Preston Road and a footway to part of Chisnall Lane, which would provide a significant betterment to pedestrian safety for the primary school and the existing community, making the local environment safer and more convenient to walk. It was raised by members in the last committee that there was an unfortunate fatality along Preston Road in April this year. This involved a collision between a vehicle and a pedestrian caused by suspected dangerous driving, and the pedestrian died as a result of this collision. The Highways Authority have confirmed that this does not affect their position, which remains unchanged. The proposed development would provide a safe and suitable access for all users. The site has direct access to public transport and is within reasonable proximity to services, shops and amenities, whereby walking and use of the bus or combined journeys are genuine modes of sustainable transport for future occupiers of the development. 4, turning to the golden rules, the officer report sets out that these are satisfied with affordable housing provision and improvements to local infrastructure. The development accords with the grey belt exception of paragraphs 155, 156 and 157 of the framework, and is not inappropriate development in the green belt. All other matters are addressed in the officer report, which considered that the proposed development would be acceptable in overall design terms, would not adversely affect neighbouring residential amenity or that of future occupiers, that nature conservation and protected species interests would be safeguarded, and that 10% biodiversity net gain would be achieved. Final details of drainage and ground conditions would be secured by way of planning conditions. The application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and a legal agreement. However, should members consider that the proposed development does not meet the exceptions set out in paragraph 155, it would be inappropriate development in the green belt. The applicant has put forward very special circumstances for consideration in order to justify the proposal. These are set out in paragraph 20 of the committee report. Officer consideration of the very special circumstances put forward are set out in paragraphs 22 to 33 of the committee report. This concludes that despite there being clear benefits of the scheme, the benefits neither individually or collectively amount to very special circumstances to outweigh the substantial harm to the green belt by definition, substantial impact on openness and conflict with the third purpose due to encroachment. However, it is reiterated that the Office of View is that the proposed development does meet exception of paragraph 155 of the framework and is not therefore inappropriate development in the green belt. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Have I got John Bennett, please? Okay.
Thank you. Let me go in with a fact, not an option. This site meets the government's definition of greenfield land. Not mostly greenfield, not arguably greenfield, not open to interpretation, factually greenfield. There is no evidence whatsoever in that field of any previous building. Mother Nature has reclaimed it. It's green. The policies and guidelines that protect our countryside exist for a reason. They are not optional and they should not be set aside simply because a site has been wrongly identified as a ribboning development opportunity. 2 weeks ago in this room, I heard an elected councillor suggest that the question of whether the site is greenfield or brownfield somehow doesn't matter. I would argue the exact opposite. It matters enormously. If we stop caring about the correct classification of land, then we undermine the very planning policies we are here to uphold. Planning decisions must be based on facts and evidence, not assumptions, opinions or feelings. We are also told that this site is close to the village centre. A bus ride with a child would cost £8 return to the doctors or for basic shopping. Hardly affordable. Once again, the facts tell a different story. Planning guidance considers 800 metres to be the upper limit of what can reasonably be described as close to a village centre. And this site is more than twice that distance. Words matter, distances matter, facts and the rules matter. The issue of road safety. The increase in traffic this development will cause is a major safety risk to an already dangerously busy road on a blind bend opposite a primary school. The developer's assessment of 43 traffic movements a day from this site is ludicrous. Nobody disputes the need for affordable housing. In fact, this council deserves recognition for its strong record in delivering it. Existing developers are already providing more than 150 affordable homes, with the potential for a further 175 through the Camelot project. Combined with the sites identified within the Central Lancashire Plan, the council is meeting its housing obligations and has every reason to be proud of that achievement. This is precisely why there is no need to approve an unsuitable and unsustainable development on a site that conflicts with both the evidence and established planning policy. In summary, tonight you are deciding far more than the future of a single field. You are deciding whether planning policies mean what they say. This site isn't brownfield, isn't close to the village centre, and it isn't safe. I therefore urge you to reject this application. Land that meets the definition of greenfield cannot be interpreted as brownfield for convenience, and a site more than a mile from a village centre cannot be described as close. Please uphold the policies that exist to protect our countryside and demonstrate that planning decisions in this borough are guided by evidence, consistency and integrity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Have I got Councillor McCartney, please?
Thank you, Chair. So I spoke 2 weeks ago against this development as a ward councillor for Coppull, and I intend to do so again today. So just to briefly run through some of the concerns that I raised last time, I spoke of my meetings with some local residents, some of which have lived opposite the site for over 40 years, opposite the proposed site for 40 years. So they have real lived experience, and my conversations with them portray the real strength of feeling that they have against this proposal. They spoke of being aware that traffic is already an issue on that stretch. They spoke of the blind bend, and they spoke of knowing the road and knowing the danger that already exists. And their message was clear. Safety will be detrimented further should this proposal go ahead. They spoke of the traffic survey carried out by LCC and how it was carried out past the rugby club and doesn't actually reflect the amount of traffic that would result from this proposal. 43 movements a day, as Mr. Bennett has just pointed out, is ludicrous. And even if it was 43 movements a day, that's still onto an A road near a school and on a dangerous blind bend. I spoke of my visit to the nearby nature reserve, an area intended for protection, not for development. And I reminded the committee that nature reserve and housing estate don't tend to go very well together. I just want to come on to an argument raised by the agent on behalf of the developer in the last meeting, something Mr Bennett just touched on, that this is previously developed land, and I've looked into that. Now, the previous development on that land was 4 miners' cottages and a small shop. They were in a short single row alongside the road. They occupied less than 10% of the field that's now being developed, and they were demolished 56 years ago. This is not a previously developed site in any meaningful sense. So local amenities, this is supposedly near to local amenities. So I went back to the site, building on something pointed out by Councillor Hilton in the last meeting about the distance from the village centre. I had a look at what you can buy within a 5-minute walk from this site, and I made a list. You can buy a pint, you can buy a fireplace, and you can buy a photo shoot, and that's the end of the list. Now, they're not local amenities. I think it's important to link everything I've said today and previously to the National Planning Policy Framework, and that's the framework that the Planning Committee is expected to base all their decisions on. And it states, and these are quotes from that framework, a development should be refused if there is an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or if the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. It goes on to state, development should be in locations that limit the need to travel, allow access to services like shops, leisure facilities and community assets, and minimise journey length for daily needs. It also states that planning authorities must only permit developments which protect and/or enhance biodiversity and consider both direct and indirect impacts on protected sites. And at this point, I'll remind you that the biodiversity report suggested there will be a net habitat loss of 44.15%. Finally, on the notion that Coppull needs to do its fair share when it comes to population growth, it has. Developers in Coppull in the last 2 years have started building 308 houses, which are currently being completed in more central locations. Coppull, which is a village, hasn't shirked its responsibility to accommodate growth. It has fulfilled it. But the time has come whereby it's fair to say that enough is enough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Berry?
Is relying on extra special circumstances to justify development on land that is protected. It is a very high bar, and the evidence they provide simply does not meet it. The applicant's evidence is based on borough-wide data, not Coppull data, and the recent updated Breck housing report and the Progress housing report that came to the beginning of the month relies on Chorley-wide figures to claim an urgent need for additional affordable housing. But members will know that extra special circumstances must be specific, compelling and directly related to the site and the community affected. Using borough-level data maps the reality on the ground in Coppull and what happens if you can't meet that, if you can't find people who are local, want to live there at a particular time. Then it leaves it wide open for residents to come from the wider borough or beyond. This affordable housing justification is not site-specific. Like I say, the borough-wide averages mask the reality, and it's not satisfactory. I've asked for those figures. I had a light bulb moment about things this morning when last time I was here, I was talking about the 3 developments we had ongoing that all have a third of their development as affordable housing. So yeah, they're each delivering a substantial proportion of affordable homes already. They're real homes under construction now, meeting the needs of local families today. If the applicant is claiming an urgent unmet need in Coppull, then they must show the data. How many households with a Coppull connection are waiting? Remember, that was the special, the thing that we're being tempted with, that we're going to get that local connection, which is so, so important. Well, anyway, we haven't got that data. We need to be told what type of homes that people need and why the existing pipeline cannot meet that need. None of that evidence has been provided. The greenbelt harm is clear and substantial. This site is not just a field. It forms part of a connected wildlife, a significant space, running across the village, used by deers, owls, bats, birds and other species. And you've got some evidence in the submissions we've had from local residents and the Chorley, I'm getting it wrong, they'll tell me off, the naturalist, the natural history group have also, and also the Chisnell group have also put in comments about the wildlife. Our own policies, including BNE1, BNE9 and NPPF, require us to protect openness, landscape character, biodiversity networks, habitats used by protected species. The applicant has not demonstrated these impacts can be avoided or satisfactorily mitigated. This is a material harm that must be given substantial weight. Again, with biodiversity and ecological connectivity, the NPPF requires planning authorities to protect and enhance ecological networks and avoid fragmentation. This application would break a functioning wildlife area, reduce habitat connectivity and create permanent disturbance to species known to use the site. No credible mitigation can be provided really, just don't dig the land up. No net loss of biodiversity has been demonstrated. I've got to mention road safety and lived experiences. I'm very disappointed with the response I've got from county. It wasn't just about the fatality, which was serious and had an enormous effect on villagers and their anxiety about something they live with every day. Highways have not objected, but residents consistently tell me that the technical assessment does not reflect the lived reality of using Preston Road every day. And we're talking about the stretch. We're not just talking about the additional vehicles that are going to come off the estate. I'm talking about the long stretch, the long straight stretch where residents talk about near misses, dangerous overtakes, and the anxiety of crossing the road with children or older relatives. The applicant has offered to fund a control crossing, but this mitigation does not remove the underlying issue. We're talking about adding, you know, the way that Preston Road's going with the lorries, with the heavy lorries and the heavy lorries and the farm vehicles is just too much. Finally, I just want to answer, it's about really a question of public trust. The land has been held by Lancashire County Council for decades and used for grazing since the end of the demise of coal working in the village. Residents reasonably expect that land held in public ownership, especially Greenbelt,
Can you wind up
is
now,
managed in a
Councillor Berry?
long-term public interest. It's not just a window of opportunity to get rid of some land. This is important to the Coppull community, who see this land as part of their landscape, their wildlife corridor and their village identity. Chair,
Councillor
please
Berry,
move to
you've had your
refuse-
5 minutes.
to
More than.
refuse the application due to lack of good evidence.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on anything? Any of you? Are you happy? Before I open it up, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of points to come back on. So the site is a greenfield site by definition. The speakers were quite correct in that assessment. It's not a previously developed site. It has been reclaimed naturally. So it is a greenfield site, but that doesn't come into consideration when we're considering whether it meets the definition of grey belt. So the two terms shouldn't be confused. Just to come back on the affordable housing and whether there's a need in Coppull. So we have to assess the need for affordable housing on a borough-wide basis. We have no policy basis in which to consider it for each individual part of the borough. So from a planning perspective, we have to consider that on a borough-wide basis in the same way as we do with our normal housing requirements. Councillor Berry was quite correct in that the applicant has put in a case for very special circumstances should we not consider that the grey belt definition is met. We're clear in the report that we don't think that very special circumstances, if that was the route that we ended up having to consider the application on, would be suitably demonstrated. So putting aside the grey belt issue, the very special circumstances put forward wouldn't be sufficient in themselves to justify approval of inappropriate development within the green belt. But because the application meets, in our opinion, the definition of grey belt as set out in paragraph 155 of the MPPF, we don't need to, there is a different route towards approving the development rather than relying on very special circumstances, and we don't think that that bar has been met. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Leon, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this brief because we've been here before and this is a deferred application. So following the previous deferred meeting, your officers provided further clarification on the matters that were raised. We've also worked constructively with officers and the County Council Highways Department to address those concerns. The update report confirms that the unfortunate accident on the A49 occurred around 1 kilometre from the site, outside the study area for this application. This was not caused by an existing highway safety issue. In contrast, this proposal would deliver a new controlled pedestrian crossing, serving the nearby school and providing a clear highway safety benefit. Lancashire County Council Highways continue to raise no objection to this development. In relation to sustainability, the update report demonstrates that a range of day-to-day services can be accessed from the site on foot, and that bus services provide connections to nearby centres. Officers have therefore concluded that there is no policy basis on which to refuse this application on sustainability grounds, and obviously we would agree with that conclusion. Also, and since the deferral, we've also spoken to Progress, who would be the affordable housing provider who would manage these homes. They've confirmed that the demand for affordable housing remains extremely high in the area, with around 400 bids roughly being received for newly available affordable properties in the area. And this reflects the council's own evidence base, showing a significant need for affordable homes within the borough. Members, the principle of development has been accepted here. There are no objections from any statutory consultees, and the scheme will deliver 39 much-needed affordable homes with an 18-month implementation period to ensure rapid delivery. And given the acute need for affordable housing, the council's housing land supply position, and the conclusions set out in your officer's report, we request that you support the application tonight. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's over to you, members. Councillor Whittaker.
Just to clarify 2 points, Chair, that were made by the resident of Costello, and I've since clarified a little bit by Mr Foster, is that there was previously development on this site. There were some miners' cottages there. I remember as a child they were there across the road. That's one thing. The second thing is there was a reference earlier to a possibility of 175 houses on the Camelot site. That is currently not an option, and it should be disregarded, Chair. There's currently a public inquiry going on about that. I just wanted to clarify those points, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. You recall, Chairs and members, that when this came before us last month, I did actually raise a concern over the traffic safety on this one there, and I asked, could we get consultation back from our consultees, Lancashire County Council Highways? As has been confirmed by Amy, what they've effectively said is this would not have changed their decision over the safety of this particular development. That was one of the issues I had last time, and also, that, again, and I come back to the consultees and the consultations we've used, and I quote, Coppull Parish Council advised that they support this application as the site itself has previously had houses on it. It's not considered greenbelt and affordable housing is needed in the village. I place weight on that, Chair, to be honest with you, because ultimately the Parish Council tend to speak for these areas, and I completely take on board what's been said so far, both by councillors and indeed the representative for the village in terms of objections. I realise it's quite contentious, I also realise that it's been tightly conditioned as well, and I find myself in the position where, were we to refuse this, and this goes to appeal, that appeal I suspect would be lost. Along with that will be the conditions that we've attached to it, which are quite strenuous. And I've been here before, Chair, at this committee meetings when we've had a similar scenario where we're trying to balance, which is exactly what this committee's charged with doing. And the balance I'm putting on this is the conditions which we've applied to that, I'm not prepared to lose an appeal. So for that reason, Chair, I'm going to wait to see what my colleagues said, but at this moment in time, Chair, I'm a little bit hung in the balance, but I'll be interested to hear what my colleagues think. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. My position hasn't changed since the previous meeting. There are no very special circumstances arguments, so the only argument really would be paragraph 155. Point C states it has to be a sustainable location. I maintain the argument that this is not a sustainable location. As Councillor McCartney said, young families don't want to buy a fireplace locally. Well, they might want to initially, who knows. But people want to buy bread, they want to buy milk, they want to buy everyday essentials. And these are affordable homes for rent. A lot of people that will be moving into these areas won't be able to afford the £8 bus fare, as Mr. Bennett said. So to suggest that this is a sustainable location is ridiculous. It's absolutely not. So I don't believe it meets criteria C of paragraph 155 in order to do that. I am concerned about the highway, but Lancashire County Council say it's okay, as they say it's okay on virtually every application, which is disappointing. I drive this way every day, and you're coming from a 40 zone, going into a 30 zone, right outside this application, and people carry on going at 40 miles an hour down there. You do get idiots overtaking. Someone was driving dangerously further down the road, apparently, and that's what caused a fatality. Well, what's to say it wouldn't have been happening further up on the same road? It's not suitable. There are cars parked on both sides, but unfortunately, due to the typical representation by LCC Highways, I can't argue that in this committee, even though I know it to be true. What I will argue is that this is not a sustainable location, as I said on last time. A lot of people will be wanting to walk and get a pint of milk, to get a loaf of bread, to get baby formula, to get whatever. They have to walk down there. Like I say, I'm 6'1", I've got long legs, and it took me 50 minutes to walk down and walk back. Walking back is uphill, so if you're carrying heavy shopping bags uphill, that's not sustainable at all. I'm sorry. It's quite frankly ludicrous to suggest that is the case. People aren't necessarily going to be able to afford the bus. When the kids are on the bus, you can't get on the bus, so you're going to miss the bus. It's ridiculous. The bus isn't particularly reliable either. So I don't believe people will be wanting to go up to Standish. I think they would want to go into Coppull. They get off the bus to go to the doctor's surgery. Well, what if they've got COPD? What if they've got intermittent claudication and medical conditions where they can't walk? They've got to walk all the way down Springfield Road, all the way down to the doctor's surgery from there. So it's not just outside the bus stop there. So no. So I'd like to move refusal for the same reasons as last time. This is not a sustainable location. Therefore, it does not meet criteria C of paragraph 155, and I'd like to remove refusal for that reason. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Wilkie.
Thank you, Chair. As I said in the last meeting, I sympathise with the locals, but looking at the site plan opposite the road, there is actually houses. So I don't know what they do, whether they go to the shops on a unicycle, walk for 50 minutes or get in a car like most people do. Material planning considerations are not buying a pint at your food in shop. And if I look at the plan, there is actually parking spaces outside these houses, which are low cost, which is a community, a small community. Yes, I understand it was Greenbelt, but it does meet, I agree totally with what Kevin says, the classification for Greybelt. There is buses, maybe there's some scope there for subsidising bus routes in that area, but the across from the school, which is obviously a busy junction because people have to drop the children off at school. They don't helicopter them in. And there is going to be a proposal for a crossing, which, to my mind, would mitigate against a lot of the highways issues and hazards for pedestrians. So while I empathise, this is a loss of some green space, it will benefit the community in Coppull. There will be people in Coppull that will be able to have their family move close by, next to a school. Maybe some of the infrastructure like shops will arrive. We've looked at similar isolated plots, one in Charnock Richard recently. Very little support for things like shopping, but we were told people can get in cars and go down the road to Tesco's. This is not far from a co-op, community local shops in the high street in Coppull. So I don't know if I can fully support what is said about the distance to shops for sustainability, because I think it is more of a sustainable site than we are alluding to. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I have some sympathy with what Alex was talking about and Julie was talking about earlier. When we went on the site visit, we went and looked at the site and we looked at the plans very carefully. And at the rear of the development, there's a lot of parking spaces, which suggests that there might be a few cars there. So whilst I'm not diminishing the point about walking times, etc., a lot of the people will use the cars to do the things, and a lot of the people these days will get stuff delivered. So I'm not unsympathetic to what's been suggested, but I just wanted to make that point. It's not only talking about walking distances and times, etc., and I understand that, but a lot of people have got cars these days. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ainsworth.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Not everybody's got a car, and when people do move into these homes, some people won't have a car to rely on to go up and down. It is the same distance if you were to go into Standish from Coppull. I also object to the fact that in Coppull it's £3. If you just go further up the road into Greater Manchester, it's capped at £2 the bus fare. So I can't support this application.
Thank you, Chair. Having listened to what my colleagues are saying, and I'm weighing the balance of this one up, I keep coming back to policy basis to reject this, and I am really struggling with that. And I'm also balancing that, and I would encourage committee members to look at the conditions that have been attached to this, some 27 separate conditions that have been attached to this application. And in the balance, I think in probability this would go through. If it went to appeal, we would lose. So it's going to come. What I'm not prepared to do is to lose those conditions that have been attached to it by planning. So for that reason, Chair, I've moved it to accept this application.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened to all the evidence and from the objectors from ward councillors, and to my mind, bearing in mind the responses from the statutory consultees, and to my mind, on balance, I'm minded to second the officer recommendation for approval. I think it was proposed by Councillor Southern, and the thing that swayed me on the evidence is paragraph 6 of the report on page 5 with the update, and about paragraph 115 of the framework and the criteria A, B, C and D, etc. And whilst I've got some sympathy with the arguments that have been put forward, to my mind, it's not satisfied me that it's not a sustainable development if you look at paragraph 6 of the report. So I'll second officer recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind members there's no specific legal distance for this being a sustainable location, but planning guidelines generally consider this to be about an 800 metre distance, or a roughly, I think, a 10-minute walk. This is neither, so as far as I'm concerned, according to guidelines, this is not a sustainable location, and I'd urge members to support my refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a proposer and a seconder for the officer recommendation. I've got a proposal for refusal, and that's it. Councillor Ainsworth.
I'll second Councillor Hilton's proposal for refusal.
Okay, so I'll take the amendment. Amendment for refusal first.
Thank you, Chair. So that has actually not been carried, so we will now go to the officer recommendation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant planning permission subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement in respect of land to the west side of Preston Road. Thank you.
Thank you. If anybody's come just for that item and they wish to go now, please feel free before we move on. Okay, moving on. Item 3B, Old House Farm, German Lane, Charnock, Richard, pages 59 to 90, with an update on your addendum. Chris is going to present this item. The recommendation is that outline planning permission is granted subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement. I have a couple of registered speakers, the objector, Sonia Hill, and the agent, Peter Gilks. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So the site is located in the Greenbelt, 200 metres to the south of Exton and to the north of German Lane. It contains a group of former agricultural buildings, and the immediate locality is predominantly rural, with open undeveloped land to the north, as well as the River Yarrow. To the southwest of the site is the neighbouring dwelling Old House Farm, and to the southeast there is a terrace of residential properties with a scrapyard located at Lucas Avenue, and there's also a railway to the east of the site. Outline planning permission is sought for 9 dwellings, with all matters reserved apart from the access to the site. An illustrative proposed site plan shows how the site could be developed. However, this is purely indicative at this stage and does not form a part of the assessment. A new vehicle access point to the site will be created from German Lane, and some improvements to the existing highway network are proposed, including the widening of German Lane for a minimum of 12 metres behind the junction with Preston Road, and a new passing place would also be installed to the west of the site on German Lane. A full assessment of the proposal is set out within the committee report. Members will note that it is considered the development is acceptable in principle. This is because the scheme complies with the exception to inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, which is found at paragraph 154G of the framework, which relates to the redevelopment of previously developed land within the Greenbelt. In total, 15 objections to the application have been received, including 2 additional objections since the previous planning committee. These highlight a range of concerns about the developments, including harms to Greenbelt and rural character, highway safety, flood risk and drainage, and impacts on ecology and biodiversity. There are no outstanding objections to the scheme from any technical consultees, and it's noted that LCC Highways do not have any objections and consider the proposed access to be acceptable. It's considered that the site is capable of accommodating the quantity of development that has been proposed, so that there would be no unacceptable adverse harm to the character of the area or the amenity of neighbouring occupiers. This, however, would be considered in detail as part of the assessment of any reserve matters application. To conclude, the officer recommendation is to approve the application. This is subject to the conditions as set out within the committee report and a Section 106 legal agreement to secure a financial contribution for the provision of equipped play areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I got Sonia, please? Whenever you...
Yeah, I've switched it on. So I was lived up German Lane for 30 years now, and recently moved into Exton. My considerations are the A49 going on to German Lane, the bend on German Lane that's hidden. When you go up German Lane in a car, it's a single track road. There's one lay-by on the right-hand side, and then directly next to that is Old House Farm, where you can turn left. So my consideration and my objection to it, and the residents as well, is that when a tractor comes, because you've only considered the row of houses and Manor House, but there's also another 7 houses on that road. So, you know, the agricultural machinery, the tractors, the bales that come down that road, you cannot fit, and you could hardly fit a car when they go in, when you have to go into the lay-by and they drive past. So the road infrastructure with the rise and the fall and the ditch on one side is not appropriate for a new housing estate on the left-hand side of the 9 dwellings. So that was my first. My second point was the fact they're going to extend it, they say, at the bottom. They don't need to extend the road at the bottom. They need to extend the road during the road to make it into a double track road instead of a single track road. They also stated that they had wires down. Well, if you put wires down on a road with residents, they automatically slow down at those wires because they're unnatural on the road. So when the highwaysman came out and he measured the speed, he mentioned at point 24, there's 22.97 to 23.8 miles an hour on that road. That is incorrect because it's a rural road, a single track road, and as it is on back lane, the opposite side, it's 60 miles per hour. That's what it is. And the only reason he got those readings is because it was unnatural for those residents that live up that road to have wires on the road as they were driving up, so they automatically slowed down. So that correspondence that he got, and I've referenced it to UK government traffic calming guidance because that is what somebody naturally does when they come to wires. They slow down. The problems with ditch as well. They said they were going to put an additional lay-by in. Unless they encroach Mr Prescott's land, they cannot put an additional lay-by in because there's a 6-foot ditch. And in winter that overflows and it causes, at the bottom of the fall, lots of water, which residents, when it freezes over, they adhere to. The farmers bring the salt down and they clear that road. So unless that infrastructure at the bottom of that road is changed and the ditches and the drainage is improved, then there shouldn't be any buildings put up. And I've not even finished. There was other issues like the water and the electricity supply to the houses. I know. So the vermin and the... Yeah, sorry, Jean.
Peter.
Sorry. May I respectfully remind you that following last meeting, when the application was deferred for a site meeting, this application is to replace a collection of buildings which became obsolete for agricultural purposes some 45 years ago. At the site meeting, members will have been able to assess the characteristics of the site and German Lane, which at this time of year appears to be narrow due to the overgrown verges which presumably have been left in accordance with the no mow May policy. Since the buildings ceased to be used for the rearing of animals, they have been used as workshops, for storage and as stables, and as established by affidavits from family members, statements from neighbours and persons who have known and visited the site. Documentation in the form of stock records, business receipts, rental statements, VAT registers, purchases and sale invoices corroborates the use. It therefore can be described as a brownfield site on which stand a collection of large, unsightly, tired buildings in poor condition that are detrimental to the character, appearance and amenity of the locality. The site is located within a quarter of a mile or 5 minutes walk of the boundaries of the neighbouring large settlement of Exton, where all neighbourhood amenities are available. It is noted that the main concern of neighbours, and I suspect committee members, is the access along German Lane. When fully occupied, the vehicle activity generated by the use of the buildings as workshops, storage and stables would have been over 120 movements per day, made up mostly of commercial vehicles in the form of vans, wagons and lorries. This has been accepted by the highways engineer. The proposal, which is to replace the buildings with 9 houses, will reduce the vehicular activity by more than half and will be made up mostly of private cars, where the average speed will be 23 or 24 miles per hour. Again, this has been accepted by the highways engineer, recommending approval. In addition, the proposal will provide for improvements to the junction with Wigan Road, plus the creation of an additional passing place along German Lane. Consequently, the proposed development of replacing existing unsightly buildings, which clearly are detrimental to the visual amenity and aesthetics of the setting, with 9 houses will be an improvement. It will significantly improve road safety along the lane for motorists and especially local residents on foot by removing the number of heavy vehicles using German Lane. Accordingly, I respectfully request you accept your officer's recommendation and grant approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on anything? No. Okay, over to you, members. Councillor Whittaker.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of points that were, just to clarify a couple of points that were just made by Mr. Gilks. Talked about the verges being overgrown. Yeah, well, that's what happens with hedges on a narrow country lane. They do get overgrown. Secondly, he referred to a 5-minute walk to the middle of Exton. He must be an Olympic sprinter to do a 5-minute walk to the middle of Exton, just to make that point. It's nothing like 5 minutes, sir. My concerns, and I asked for a site visit at the last meeting, and it's a bit disappointing that there was just you and I and one other councillor, but that happens with working hours and so on and so forth. No question about the redundancy of the buildings. They are redundant buildings, and we saw that on the site visit. One of the concerns I have is the number. It talks of, as they always do these days, about up to 9 dwellings. Up to 9 dwellings is a lot. Looking at the plan that we looked at, there could be 2-3 bedrooms, could be 2 or 3 cars each, 20 odd cars, regular visits. It's a narrow road. It's the concerns that the residents have, that we heard from the residents, are about road safety, are about the speed of vehicles that might go on there and the number of other vehicles that use the road. There's a fishery there, there's agricultural vehicles that get up that road and so on, which cause problems. Paragraph 33 on the report talks about highway safety, and we mustn't allow things that will obstruct the free flow of traffic. Now, I can't see anybody going along there that will not affect the free flow of traffic. It will bring significant harm to the area, and it will as was said earlier, there are other houses there that are already there. There's a little terrace of about 7 or 8 houses there, and down under the bridge, etc. So I think this is a wrong application in the wrong place, Chair, and I'm proposing that at the moment that this be refused. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Councillor Southern, Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. Ironically, I'd take the converse view. I think this is the right application in the right place. The idea of taking down old buildings which are now dilapidated and no longer used is exactly what we should be doing. We're building on a brownfield site. Take on board what's been said about the actual size of the road on that one there. But the evidence that's been put forward in terms of the previous traffic that was on there, i.e. heavy goods vehicles, no longer exists. It's been removed. The agricultural stroke industrial use of these buildings would say that effectively cars in the quantities we put forward there have got to be a lot more visible and a lot more easier to manage than commercial vehicles on that one there. So I know the lane, I know German lane, and I take on board exactly what's been said, but I refer to the points made by Consultees Highways on that one there, and they've taken note of the actual splays on there and where we need to put passing points in. I can't find a reason why, on road safety, I would say no to this application. To my mind, and you know, I was of the same opinion last time, but I was willing to see what people thought, having a site survey, had they changed their minds on that one there, and I'm of the same opinion, Chair. So for that reason, on my basis, Chair, I would propose to accept Planning Officer's recommendations to accept this application.
Thank you. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't make the actual site visit, but I did take my dog for a walk down there later. This is no bigger than a path in some respects, so you can just about fit a car down there. They're talking about free flow of traffic. Well, I nearly obstructed the free flow of traffic, and my little dog and I nearly got run off the road by an average household car. So I do have concerns about traffic safety down there. LCC have failed us yet again by most probably a paper exercise or putting a few cables down which people slow down for. They act like speed bumps, don't they? So I'm not confident in their assessment of this, unfortunately. So yeah, it's not even safe to walk down at the moment, Chair. So that's all I need to say on it. Thank you.
Any more comments from anybody? I seem to have two proposals and no second. Yes, do you want to come back in?
Thanks, Chair. Just a point to move towards a refusal on those grounds. The buildings in question that would be removed as part of this development have a lawful business use attached to them. So if we were to try and justify any reasons for refusal on highway grounds, it would have to take into account that those existing lawful uses of those buildings could restart at any point in time. So we would have to demonstrate how this development would be worse on highway safety grounds than if the existing business uses were in operation. So I just wanted members to keep that in mind as they do their considerations.
Councillor Hilton.
Yeah, I can't second the proposal for refusal because LCC have said everything's okay. So reluctantly, I can't second that because it's all okay. It's always okay, isn't it? You know, I wouldn't be able to second it for that reason, but I'm not happy with it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just to hopefully give Councillor Hilton a bit of reassurance that LCC, as part of their considerations, did take into account the lawful uses of the building. It's in sort of paragraphs 39, 40 of the report. So they have considered that there are existing lawful uses on those buildings. So it is on that basis in which they've supported the application.
Councillor Hilton.
Just one quick comeback. I don't think LCC took into account the fact that I was nearly run over with my dog the other night. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Whittaker.
I wish we weren't saying this, but recent recommendations from Lancashire County Council Highways Authority have been bordering on the ridiculous, and this is even more so. We've heard it earlier about the Coppull one. We've heard it. We had some experience with it just recently over the Camelot application as well. So I'm convinced this is a dangerous application and there will be consequences if this is approved, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got a proposer and a seconder, I think, for the officer recommendation. And sorry, Councillor Wilkie.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my concern is the access and the road. However, if you look at the actual details in the planning, there were former stables there. Now, stables require horses to be moved to and from venues, functions, etc. That involves putting a horse in a trailer on the back of a large vehicle and going down that track site. So I think the argument of a household car not rivaling a trailer, industrial vehicles, commercial vehicles, does not stack up, in my view, the argument. I have got grave concerns. I do think the access road needs widening, but there's previously been before there. These are unsightly, I agree. I think it would make a very nice housing development. I doubt in my lifetime I'll be able to afford a house there. However, I do feel that the road is an issue, but I think if highways say it's fine, we can widen that road. This, to me, it would be an acceptable development.
Thanks, Chair. I think, obviously, looking at this one, we all understand German Lane, how it is. It's a difficult one to comprehend, this one, especially, obviously, given what LCC have said in terms of the passing places. I understand, obviously, the 9 houses, where they go in, and it's up to 9 houses, but it's certainly a difficult one to make a decision on. It comes down to, obviously, what you feel is right, and it's like Councillor Hilton said, it's annoying with what LCC are coming back with, basically saying everything's okay.
Is everybody finished? If so, I'll move to the vote. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just come in? Because we had a proposal for amendment from Councillor Whitaker. Then Councillor Hilton seconded. Then he decided that he wanted to withdraw that. Did you actually second it?
I never seconded it because
right, okay.
It wouldn't be possible because of what LCC Highways have said.
Yeah. Then we got a proposal for approval from Councillor Southern. Did you second that? Or did somebody second that? I didn't catch anybody actually second that proposal for officer recommendation. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. So members have decided to approve the permission in respect of the old home farm, German Lane. That is subject to conditions in the Section 106 agreement.
Okay. Thank you very much. If anybody's come, just come for that item they want to go, because we haven't finished yet. So please feel free. It wasn't a farce. I can read. Just because you didn't get your own way, it wasn't a farce. Okay. Okay. Do we have Councillor Khan online? Okay. Moving on to item 3C. Let me turn over. 12 Eaves Lane, Chorley, pages 91 to 108. Kevin's going to present this item. recommendation is to permit full planning permission, and I've one registered speaker, the ward councillor, Councillor Khan, who's joining us on Teams. So, can you hear us, Councillor Khan? No. No. Ah, she's there. Can you hear us? I bet she's muted. She's there. Isn't technology wonderful? When it don't work.
Press the button.
And there ain't nothing I can do here.
Should we just start?
Sorry, yeah. Councillor Khan?
Should we send her a message?
No.
I'll send her.
Sorry?
I'll send her a message.
Send her a message. Bear with us. Unmute me. What we'll do, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes. We'll try and get in touch with Councillor Khan so she gets back to us. Okay. Right, so relax for 5 minutes.
If anybody wants to go for a break.
Feel free.
But she's speaking on the next one as well.
Huh?
She's speaking on both, so it's not like we can move on.
No, I know, she's speaking on both. I can't
I
move
can
on.
hear you.
Oh, perfect.
I can hear you.
Sit down, everybody.
Yeah.
We've got to.
Sorry about that.
Right. Kevin, and we're going, you can hear us now. Right, Kevin, over to you, whoever. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. This application is to change the use of 12 Eaves Lane, Chorley to a 5-bed house in multiple occupation. The application site is an in-terrace property within the settlement area of Chorley. Prior to the introduction of the Article 4 direction, this proposal would have been permitted development and not have required planning permission. The proposed change of use is acceptable in principle, given that it is a residential type use in an existing residential property within the settlement area. One letter of objection has been received, and the points raised are summarised at paragraph 5 of your report. In respect of policy HS10 of the emerging Central Lancashire Local Plan, the proposal does not sandwich any residential property with another HMO, nor does it create a run of 3 or more HMO uses. The site is a sustainable location. Although no off-street parking is proposed, Lancashire County Council, as a local highway authority, have no objection to the proposal, subject to a condition requiring cycle storage in the rear yard of the property. The property currently does not provide for any off-street parking spaces, and given the sustainable nature of the location, the proposals are considered to be acceptable in highway terms. Given the range of uses in the area, and the fact the use is a residential type use, the amenity of neighbouring residential properties will not be detrimentally impacted upon. Environmental health officers have no objection to the proposals, and they state that a licence will be required for this property should it get planning permission. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions listed in the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me. I've got a really bad chest. If I cough, please excuse me. On this application, I feel there's not really enough consideration given even regards to vehicle parking for the residents of the area or the street. The lack of spaces for residents on an already congested spaces on the terrace streets, where cars end up on the pavements, limited access for prams, wheelchairs, etc. I have also concerns around the occupants sharing bathrooms, kitchens in a confined space and areas. And I just want to say that please give consideration to all the remarks which you've received and what I've just mentioned before reaching any decision. And I will say that it's contrary to the BNE1 and policies ST4, HS10 and EM4. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so looking at this to me looks like another loss of an affordable housing for family. And on the face of it, okay, it may meet, you know, planning recommendation, but I have an issue with it. We look at amenity, which is policy EM4 on the central local plan, but when I look at paragraph 27, which is stated in the report, it says in terms of the amenity, an HMO licence will be required, and that based on the information submitted, there's no reason to doubt these standards could not be met. On this basis, the proposal is in accordance with policy BNE1. However, when you look at the room plan, I know in previous applications they've talked about acceptable sizes of rooms, but when you actually look, this is a very small terraced house, and the actual site plan and proposed floor plan does not state any room sizes. So where is the evidence to suggest that it meets that amenity standard? Because I don't actually feel it does. There absolutely is no guidance in the plan, and I've gone through it several times with the room sizes, and I would not like to make a judgment on this to say that this is appropriate for future users of this proposal. Thank you. So therefore, I would recommend not recommend officer recommendation. I would move for to not approve. Thank you, Alan.
Councillor Top.
Having gone through this application, thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of the main issues that I have with this is that within 200 to 400 metres of this application, we already have 5 substantial licensed HMOs. On top of that, I am also aware of 4 non-licensed HMOs within the surrounding area. It is for that purpose only that I move that we reject this application.
Want to come back on anything, Kevin?
Thanks, Chair. Just on the point from Councillor Todd, we have no policies in our local plan or emerging local plan that would support a reason for refusal on that basis. The emerging policy does have a requirement about sandwiching an existing residential property with between 2 houses and multiple occupation, and creating rows of 3 or more HMOs. But in terms of that wider area, there is no policy basis for refusing an application on that basis.
Okay, I've got Councillor Whittaker, Councillor Hilton, and then you can come back. Councillor Top.
Chair, this is bad planning. You look at the plans, the proposed plans, it's got 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen. And we expect 5 people to live independently in that circumstances. That's going back to the 1910 and squalor. And this is a not acceptable plan. And there's a similar one following on from next door, from the next planning application. So I second the refusal, Chairman, very strongly.
Thank you. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. I kind of agree with what my colleagues have said here this evening. And I do think the number of HMOs in the area is a problem, because I think that has a significant impact on the amenity of the local area for multiple residents. This particular application, looking at it as it is at the moment, so there's limited or no off-street parking provision, certainly limited. It's intensification of the buildings, intensification of the use of the building, and there's going to be a requirement to accommodate, I think, cycles and bins, etc. So that's going to provide very, very limited amenity space for the future residents, and that's really quite concerning. I think because there are 5 independent people living here rather than a family, they're going to be coming and going at different times. So the increased activity beyond that of a family home will also have a significant detrimental impact on the amenity of local residents in the area and the residents in this property. So I would also move for refusal. I would like to quote some policy to support that. So I believe it is in breach of BNE4 and ST4 of the Chorley local plan, and potentially HS2 and EN4 of the emerging Central Lancashire local plan. So I'm quite happy to move it with those policies as justification for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Top.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Further to what I said regarding the concentration, now Eaves Lane is becoming a cluster of HMOs. Now, I'm now aware that we have no policy on that, but it has a serious detrimental effect to the social cohesion within the local community. There is a substantial amount of upset with the removal of family homes, with the infusion of HMOs into these cheap family homes. The local community do not feel it appropriate for this to happen. And again, there are issues with parking, the removal of the family homes. I'm sorry, I just can't agree with it. I agree with Councillor Hilton as well that, you know, there is no parking facilities there. That's it, Madam. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to support details offered by Councillor Hilton in his proposition, and just a couple of quick comments with regard to paragraphs 28 to 31 from highways and parking, and paragraph 29, the property currently has no in-curtilage parking. And then highways, Lancashire County Council highways, and it just appears to be they seem to have a set button on the computer, because I've sat through various planning committee meetings when we've considered, and we treat each application on its own, on their own merits, but there's a theme going on, because in effect you could copy and paste the comments from Lancashire County Council highways on basically every HMO application, and if I stand to be corrected, it's exactly the same comment they made at the last meeting with the application in Coppull, and over X number of months there's been the same copy and paste things. So for that, Chair, and I'm fully supporting of the detailed reasons that Councillor Hilton has moved.
Mr. Southern.
Thank you, Chair. Concur with what my colleagues have said in terms of a proliferation of these HMOs across Chorley. This particular one, and particularly the points that Councillor Hilton's highlighted in terms of reasons for refusal. Looking at this, I would have argued amenity over it if amenity came into it. A kitchen you can't swing a cat in. If you're lucky and you get the downstairs lounge, you get a shower en suite, so there's a plus point, isn't it? It's cute to get that one. The rest of them there, quite frankly, it's exactly the same thing that we're seeing every time when these HMOs come before us. Take a 3-bedroomed house, which can just about work, and make it into a 5-bed that you've got to live in. we have to apply a licence to that, but that is not a matter for this committee. The issue we have at all of these applications for HMOs and the proliferation of them and the bunching of them isn't something that we have a policy on as such. I'm assuming that when they're going to get a licence for this one there, it's going to stack. Again, that's not a matter for this committee. That's a matter for amenities, and that's a matter for environmental to pass this or not. I'm just looking at that and thinking, once again, shoebox. I wouldn't put my dog in that, and he's only a Westie, but there you go. So I'm happy to concur with the rest of my colleagues, Chair, that we reject this proposal. Thank you.
Just want to say anything, or can I move to the vote?
Sorry, Chair, I think my vocal tonight. This kind of accommodation is exploitation of some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And, you know, you'll have people in there that possibly on full housing benefit, so the landlords will have been making a lot of money for people living in almost Dickensian conditions, as Councillor Whittaker has said. I've previously said about the size of rooms being akin to dog kennels. I think other people have mentioned chicken coops, and someone mentioned battery humans. But that is not the kind of housing we should be aspiring for in Chorley. It is exploitation of the vulnerable in our society, and it's not acceptable. Now, that's not a valid planning reason, but I think I have given you multiple other planning reasons to reject this. So I would encourage members of the committee to refuse for the reasons I've given. Thank you.
I think everybody's said what they need to. Can we move to the vote, please?
Yeah, I just want to clarify the policies. So it's BNE1, ST4, HS10 and EN4. Those 4 policies, yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, right.
And I'll agree the final wording with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, yeah, we move to the vote, please. Sorry, I've done that wrong.
No. Sorry, yeah, so it's members have voted to actually refuse the application, just for
so it's
clarity.
the amendment, yeah.
Through you, Chair, I can confirm.
Yeah, we
I can
can't
confirm.
because we'll lose her again.
Yeah, so
we don't want to do that.
Members have decided to refuse that application on the basis of the policies outlined unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3D. Kevin again. Officer recommendation, planning permission is granted, subject to conditions, and Councillor Khan speaking on that.
Sorry,
if
Chair,
we can get her back.
Mistake on your
Oh, have we
script.
got?
There's an objective.
Oh, she's not on my list.
My mistake. I apologise.
Oh, so, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. This application is to change the use of 39 Cowling Brow, Chorley to a 5-bed house in multiple occupation. The application site is an end terrace property within the settlement area of Chorley. Prior to the introduction of the Article 4 direction, this proposal would have been permitted development and not have required planning permission. The proposed change of use is acceptable in principle, given it is a residential type use in an existing residential property within the settlement area. 4 objections have been received, and the points raised are summarised at paragraph 6 of your report. A representation has also been received from Sir Lindsay Hoyle MP, which is detailed in your addendum. In respect of policy HS10 of the emerging Central Lancashire local plan, the proposal does not sandwich any residential property with another HMO, nor does it create a run of 3 or more HMO uses. The site is a sustainable location, although no off-street parking is proposed. Lancashire County Council, as a local highway authority, have no objection to the proposal, subject to condition requiring cycle storage in the rear yard. Given the sustainable nature of the location, the proposals are acceptable in highway terms. A range of uses are present in the area, and this proposal is for residential type use, and the amenity of neighbouring residential properties will not be detrimentally impacted upon. Environmental health officers have no objection to the proposals. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions listed in your report. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, over to you, Rachel. You were on one list, but not on another.
I am a tenant of 41 Cowling Brow, the adjoining property of 239. Since the conversion and accommodating 5 unrelated tenants for the past year almost, it's shown over intense use of a property. It's clear that rooms are a necessity, not for comfort, leaving only space for a single bed and a chest of drawers. The kitchen consists of one shared washing machine and a small standard fridge freezer for all to share. And in this area, a sofa has been placed for the communal element. In reality, occupancy exceeds 5 due to partners and visitors often at the property. Although they may not reside there, they still place additional demands on already limited facilities and living space and next to no privacy, while also contributing to increased disturbance. Externally lacks amenity space for occupants. There appears to be no routine in duties in maintaining the property. Standard bins have been left in the front garden since they were delivered, some occasions overflowing with tenants using the public bin across the road, again leaving refuge workers to collect the bins instead of presenting them. The impact of this HMO has been noticeable to all, and there's been an increase in antisocial behaviour, which is causing disruption to my house and neighbours. As the adjourned neighbour, I experienced firsthand everything associated with this property, and the experience isn't pleasant. There have been continual issues since the second tenant was moved in. Increasing tenants caused harm and upset inside the HMO. The issues have included frequent arguments, fights and stealing, and visitors causing disturbance and intimidation. Since renovation and removal of interior brick, we can hear conversations and general noise a lot more, with fire doors slamming all day and night. Numerous occasions has resulted in police presence. My children suffer a lot witnessing the confrontations that have happened mainly at night when tenants return home. On Christmas Day, we were woken up at 6 o'clock, not by happy kids opening presents, but by tenants intoxicated, shouting, arguing with ex-partners, throwing rocks at the property. On one occasion, we were woken at 4 a.m. with the fire alarm when food was left unattended in the oven. This incident was a shock and raised concerns about fire safety within the property, as potentially 2 tenants could have died that day, and our house being adjoined, I'm glad it wasn't worse. But I also shouldn't have to, as a parent, keep justifying my children's exhaustion and behaviour to the school because they've been up since 4 a.m. or in bed late due to the issues with the property. Parking's already a struggle, and a 5-bed HMO inevitably generates additional vehicles from tenants, partners, taxis and support workers. It has already become apparent through increased traffic and vehicles arriving all hours. The demand for parking creates congestion, reducing visibility for drivers and pedestrians. Limited parking for existing residents has also been potential to impede access for emergency vehicles. I've got other things, but I wish you'd reject it, please.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I echo everything that Rachel has just said. And in addition, I'd say I'm also worried about the safety of the occupants. Restricted space in the dwelling for entry and exit, which can make rescue or escape difficult in an emergency. There's lack of access for emergency situations on the actual road. It's already busy enough and leading to concerns of such emergencies if they occur. And HMO at this location would adversely affect the area. I strongly request that you take on board all the comments which are made by Rachel, myself and everyone else who's going to speak. Take the comments and concerns into consideration before reaching a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to come back on anything? No. I've got Councillor Whittaker, Councillor Wilkie, Councillor Southern, Councillor Ainsker.
Me first, Chair.
Yeah.
This is, compared to the previous one, this is absolute luxury. This has got 2 showers for a thing. It's an absolute disgrace It's bad planning. It should be rejected, and I move refusal straight away.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's an interesting one, this, because it's obviously in operation prior to planning permission, which is ordinarily a really bad thing for us to actually, we usually make a big do about that. I don't think there's anything I could say that couldn't have been put more eloquently by our speaker here. This is precisely the reason why we do not like HMOs, because they're unregulated, whether they're licensed or not. There is nobody there Monday to Friday, 24 hours a day, and at weekends as well, looking at who's coming and going and what's happening. And this has obviously negatively impacted on the residents to the point where it's affecting our children's education. What a disgrace. It is an absolute disgrace. And not only that, again, this is another family home. This could have a family that we are so desperately needing to house. One, for instance, that's in Cotswold House in temporary accommodation. This would have been perfect for that, next to children they could play with. I'm absolutely outraged that these things happen, and how this has been allowed for landlords to do merely on the back of profit is an absolute social disgrace, and I absolutely 200% endorse refusal. Thank you. I don't know how it would work though, because it's already there.
Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Chair. To quote a certain Mr. Ernie Wise, like what she said, you summed it up. I think the instance we've got here, and Councillor Wilkie's touched on this, is we've actually got an HMO that's being run, and we've got a blow-by-blow account of exactly what's going on in there. And it comes as no surprise to us. Just to probably cast a bit of light on this, the reason that I suspect this has come about, and Kevin might well clarify this has fallen between the cracks. So this HMO was actually built under permitted development prior to us bringing in Article 4. Am I right on that, Kevin? No? Can you clarify that one? Why has it come out for licensing?
Through you, Chair, we believe that the use came into effect after the Article 4 was brought into use. Although otherwise, they would have submitted a certificate for existing lawful use to prove that they implemented that use before the Article 4 come in, and then they wouldn't have needed to apply for planning permission.
It was a timeline thing. It was the other way. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. That's why we've got it. But what we've got is a first-hand account of actually what goes on in these HMOs, which is no surprise to us. The point's been made there about the fire alarm going off, and my issue with HMOs, not so much of this size here, but particularly of over 3 stories, basically, is a safety one. Not a matter for this committee, but as a guy that's dealt in health and safety and life safety equipment for the past 35, 40 years, they do concern me. And it's only a matter of time, and I made the point earlier about these things with it. Granted, we've got external bike racks on this one there, but I'm sorry, electric bikes, Chinese import electric bikes in these HMOs, it's only a matter of time before we're investigating a serious fire or possible, God forbid, death. So for that matter, yes, I propose we reject it. Thank you. But it will obviously have to be on the points that we made earlier. I believe, Kevin, you've got the points we made for the previous one. If you could apply them to that one there, smashing.
Yep, they would apply. And whilst I'm speaking, I'd just like to reassure members that obviously the use is ongoing at the moment. So if it is voted to refuse the application, then we'll commence a necessary enforcement action against the owners of the property at that point.
Yeah. Can I just ask as well, Kevin, are environmental aware of this, by the way? Have they applied for a licence? Or is it subject to them getting a planning permission on it?
I couldn't tell you, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
I've got Councillor Ainsworth, Councillor Hilton. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm surprised by this application. This is a 2-bedroom property, and they want to put 5 bedrooms in this property. I'm shocked. Just the size of it, and there's no space. The bathrooms are tiny. I won't be supporting this application.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the reiteration of what colleagues have actually said, it's a retrospective application, and so some of the detail that has been proposed have already been implemented. I'm looking from pages 1, 2, 3 onwards in terms of, and I know it's not necessarily a planning consideration, but spacing standards and the location of the bins, etc., and the lady who's spoken eloquently about the reality of the situation. But on, say, for instance, page 125, proposed elevation, well, later on in the documentation, it's already been implemented, i.e. the new window setting, for the reasons similar to what we discussed on the previous application. I have no hesitation to support refusal of this application on the policies that have been stated.
Okay, Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. Unlike Councillor Wilkie, I don't generically dislike HMOs. I think some HMOs can be really appropriate in the right place. I've lived in them when I've been a student, etc. What I am against is the wrong HMO in the wrong area, and that's exactly what this is. And for exactly the same reasons I gave for the last one. So I've already quoted the policies and the reasons for it, and yeah, I would refuse it on those again. But like I say, not all HMOs are bad, but this one is not good. Thank you.
Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, just a quick one back, Chair, to Kevin, if I may. Kevin, can you just clarify this new window opening? Am I to assume that that wasn't there previously, or they put it in subsequently? Is it forming part of this application, or was it not there previously?
It does form part of the application, but I'm not sure if it's there at the moment or not, to be quite honest with you.
It does. It is. It's in there. Right. We've had confirmation of that, like what she said. Thank you.
Okay. Has everybody finished, or can I move to the vote? Councillor Wilkie.
Sorry, just to clarify a point that Councillor Hilton said, it's these kind of HMOs that we don't like, not all HMOs. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to refuse the application in respect of 39 Cowling Brow. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. If you want to go, please feel free, because we've a bit of something to do. I've no announcements, but can you just wait a couple of minutes at the end of the meeting? Kevin wants to speak. Okay, and with that, thank you all for your attendance. Have a safe journey home. Hang on a minute, Alan, don't go yet. Okay, so can we finish the recording, please? Okay, it's nothing serious.
Thanks, Chair.
Don't look so worried.
Yeah, the recording's off.
Yeah, the recording's off, yeah.
As you will have seen, there's a site visit scheduled for the Finnington Lane application next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. We want to get as many members to the site as possible, given the scale